This is another video on the histology of the organs for the lymphatic system, because when you take your midterm, you're going to need to be able to distinguish what type of organ you're looking at in order to determine the structures. And so the big clue that you're looking at the appendix is the fact that you can see these simple columnar epithelial cells, and there's some goblet cells in between them, which is why they look clear. And simple columnar epithelium is going to be lower in the digestive tract. We have stratified squamous in the oral cavity, the esophagus, but once we get to the stomach, that changes to simple columnar. So this is the appendix, and that way you know that the space, this big space inside here, so if we were to point to the space, that is the lumen of the appendix, and then we have these lymphoid nodules within the appendix. So that's how you know you're in the appendix versus looking at the palatine tonsil. I'm going to put that up next in this video. So here we have the palatine tonsil, and you can see the tonsillar crypt. That's that space right there. And then what's telling about this is that we have stratified squamous epithelium. And I'm going to zoom in on that in just a little bit. And then we have lymphoid nodules. And on some of the lymphoid nodules, you can see the germinal centers. I have another video where they're more evident, but the germinal center is going to be that portion of the lymphoid nodule where you can tell there's more active mitosis going on. I zoomed in on the stratified squamous epithelium for you so you can see how the cells flatten out towards the apical surface. The stratification actually begins right here, so that's where our stratified squamous epithelium begins, and then the apical surface is here. Here's a close-up of a lymphoid nodule. You can see that it's this area, and then the germinal center is all of this in here. Now we're looking at a lymph node, and there's some distinguishing characteristics of the lymph node. You'll notice that the lymph node has this outer cortex and an inner medullary portion. We have lymph follicles. Okay, we have lymph follicles. There's another lymph follicle and another lymph follicle. But in the lymph node, we also notice that there is connective tissue that makes up this pattern called trabeculae, which is a lace-like or lattice-like pattern. And within these lymph follicles, the central portion is the germinal center. So I'm going to go ahead and increase magnification on this lymph node. So notice we have no simple columnar epithelium, we have no stratified squamous epithelium, and we see these distinguishing features of trabeculae and lymph follicles. And we also have these medullary cords and lighter areas known as medullary sinuses. I'm going to increase magnification on this lymph node. I've increased magnification on the lymph node, and you can see the trabeculae made up of connective tissue, and you can see the areas that are known as medullary cords, and then the lighter areas are medullary sinuses. I'm going to find a lymph follicle. So here we have a lymph follicle. It's this entire space, and then the central area is actually the germinal center. So if you're tested and you see something right smack in the middle, call it the germinal center and you should be good. So this is the lymph node, okay? Again, much different from the palatine tonsil, which had stratified squamous epithelium and tonsillar crypts, and much different from the appendix, which has the lumen, in which you also see simple columnar epithelium and goblet cells and lymphoid nodules. We're going to head on over to the thymus next. In the thymus gland at low magnification, all of these little sections are the thymic lobules, or you can just call them lobules. A lobule is a small version of a lobe. So all of these areas are lobules. The thymus has an inner medullary portion, which is much lighter, and an outer cortex, which stains darker. And we're going to zoom in on the medullary portion to find the thymic or Hassel's corpuscles. So when I zoom in on this microscope, the thymic or Hassel's corpuscle is this structure here. I can just bring my phone closer. It gets a little blurry at that point. I'm going to go ahead and show you another Hassel's corpuscle here. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this. And this is the Hassel's corpuscle at 400 magnification. I'm going to go ahead and get a different slide for the thymus to show you the difference. By the way, 400 magnification on this machine is a lot different than our microscopes. So please look at those differences when you look at these slides under the microscope. This is actually the thymus of a fetus, and you can see some of the lobulations in here. And here we have the cortex is going to be slightly darker than the medullary region. This is on lowest power. I wanted to show you the lobules for this thymus in the fetus first. And so now we are looking at this slide on the number 10 magnification for this particular machine. And here we have the Hassel's corpuscles. And so the Hassel's corpuscles kind of remind me of little roses in the thymus. And here is a higher magnification for a Hassel's corpuscle in the thymus. This is actually a slide of the spleen, and I wanted to pull it up because you can really tell the difference between the white pulp and the red pulp. Remember, the white pulp is where the B and T lymphocytes are going to mature, and because they're lymphocytes, they stain darker. And we can appreciate the difference between the white pulp and the red pulp. Again, the red pulp is where worn out red blood cells or old red blood cells are going to be recycled, and then the white pulp is where we have leukocytes. That's why it's called white pulp, because leukocytes are white blood cells, and that's where we find B cell and T cell maturation. In the spleen, here's another slide where we can see the white pulp and the red pulp. So we've got the white pulp with our T and B lymphocytes and the red pulp surrounding. This is on lowest magnification. I'm going to go up one more. And hopefully you can see the difference in this area where we have white pulp and the surrounding area where there's red pulp. So you'll notice that unfortunately this kind of looks like a trabecula. It's not, it's part of a blood vessel, but we don't have trabeculae within this tissue sample. So that will help you distinguish it from the lymph node.